Hi, my name is Mark Dunn, and this is another review for Christian Scriptures 3. I will be reviewing for you guys today the book of Nahum, and I'll be summarizing two sources outside of our coursework. The first source I will be summarizing is the book of Nahum by Charles Fenberg. Charles Fenberg. I would like to highlight one point in particular. That is God's strange way of comforting his people. God's strange way of comforting his people. Nahum has the same root word as the name Nehemiah. And we all understand that Nehemiah means to comfort. It is the concept of comfort. And one may ask, how in the world can we find comfort in the book of Nahum? Because the book of Nahum is a book of doom. It's a book that is talking about impending judgment on the city of Nineveh. Well, I find comfort in knowing that God takes care of his people. He sought a relationship with them. And a relationship is necessary for them to live in the fullness of his blessings. So even in chastisement, we see the comfort of God, because God chastised his people because he desired a relationship with them. And the part of chastisement is the punishment. He allowed other nations to overthrow them, not because he didn't love them, but he was trying to bring them back to him. But he promised to punish the nations and replant them over and over again. This is a cycle that we see in the Old Testament. And this is just another part of that cycle in dealing with the Assyrians and the people of God and the prophet Nahum. And I'll do for you, God says, what you cannot do for yourselves. I know that I've allowed you guys to be overthrown, but I can pull you out of bondage, and I will pull you out of bondage. So that's the comfort that comes along with even the chastisement of his people. So it's strange. It's a strange way that God comforts his people. It's strange to us, but not strange when you really consider the fact that he wanted them to turn back to him. And the second source is the interpretation of Nahum by William C. Graham. The interpretation of Nahum, and he uses chapter 1 through 9, and verse 9 through chapters 2 and verse number 3. And I would like to call this particular segment of this summary poetic justice. Poetic justice, because Graham talks about the type of writing, that is, Nahum used Hebrew poetry, poetic writing. And when we look at Hebrew poetry and the writings of the Hebrews, poetry, psalms, and hymns were special ways to communicate with each other. It was a way to communicate with each other, and some of these poems and psalms and hymns, only they would fully understand what was being said. It was almost like a code language, if you will. And this was extremely helpful during times of captivity. So Hebrew poetry would be understood by the Hebrews, but certain things would be more difficult to understand for the oppressors. So Nahum used poetic writing, and it's poetic justice. That is, God was talking about destroying their enemies, and their enemies may not even have known what the poetry was talking about. So God communicated with his people. Even in the midst of captivity and harsh treatment, God kept an open line of communication with them. Yeah, sure, he cut them off in certain aspects because he had to. He was chastising them and trying to bring them back to him. But all throughout the ordeal, the captivity, the harsh treatment, God kept an open line of communication with his people. Thank you for listening. Be blessed.